Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver, as always. A ton of stuff to get into today. We had some big NFL news that I'm going to lead the show off with. Also, Steph Curry, why he is clearly the front runner for the MVP award. I know a lot of people have talked about Joel Embiid, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, rightfully so. But Steph Curry's the front runner. I'll explain that in a few minutes. Also, speaking of Kevin Durant, what is his legacy long-term in Golden State? He's going to return to the Bay to play the Golden State Warriors on a primetime game on ABC tomorrow night. Also, Urban Meyer with a very controversial hire of his strength and conditioning coach, discussing that later on, as well as Zion and Luka go head-to-head tonight on ESPN at 7:30 Eastern, not long after the show ends. So you can watch this show, watch me talk about Zion and Luka, and then we can all watch them play tonight. So a lot to get into today, but let's start with J.J. Watt, who got released by the Houston Texans today. I figured he would get traded. He was not. I figured, he would get traded, and then eventually, whenever, Deshaun Watson would get traded as well. But he got released. Now, before I go into the possible destinations for J.J. Watt, let's make sure we don't forget that he had, first of all, he goes down, and the Texans have only been around since 2002. They haven't even been around 2 decades, okay? Tom Brady has been in the NFL longer than the Houston Texans, just to put that into context. But J.J. Watt will go down, no question, as the greatest Houston Texan of all time. There's no question, there's no debate. You look at, his rookie season, only had 5.5 sacks, but that one playoff game against the Bengals, he just took over. And what's ironic is he was picked, obviously, out of Wisconsin, and a lot of the Houston Texans fans, they hated the pick. I think they wanted, like, Christian Ponder or somebody who got drafted by the Vikings. Christian Ponder was terrible, right? So Texans fans didn't like it at the time. Obviously, they regret that now. It seems like when fans boo a draft pick, it seems like that draft pick goes on to be, like, the best player on the team. But, hey, every fan has their down moments. But J.J. Watt comes back in 2012 and records 20.5 sacks. His second year in the NFL, 20.5 sacks. Comes back in 2013. The Texans are terrible. They win their first 2 games in 2013. I remember this. And then they lost 14 straight to end the season. They get the number 1 pick and take Jadeveon Clowney, obviously. But then the next season, J.J. Watt has one of the greatest seasons by a defensive player we've ever seen, ever. 20.5 sacks. Okay, he scored 3 touchdowns. He scored 3 touchdowns. His name was in the running as a defensive end. His name was in the running for the MVP award. Think about that. A defensive tackle. He played inside, outside on occasion. Tackle for a loss, he had 29. I mean, he was dominant in 2014. Aaron Rodgers won the MVP that year. I don't know what the voting was. I think it was like Aaron Rodgers. I think DeMarco Murray's name was in there. J.J. Watt, in my opinion, should have been like right behind Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron had an amazing season back in 2014 with the Packers, obviously, but J.J. Watt was amazing. Then the next year, the Texans kind of had a down year. They're 9-7, and people thought, oh, J.J. Watt's kind of regressed. If regressing is going from 20.5 sacks to 17.5 sacks, I'll take that any day of the week. So 2015, he gets 17.5 sacks. It's ironically the first 5 seasons of his career, he starts all 16 games. But then the injuries hit. He only plays 3 games in 2016, only plays 5 games in 2017. And something else as well that we have to bring up about J.J. Watt is that off the field, he's as good as it gets, right? Obviously, in 2018, he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, and deservedly so, for his work in the community in Houston after hurricane. I can't remember which hurricane it was, but it hit in August of 2017 in Houston, Texas. I mean, just devastating hurricane. And J.J. Watt started this thing. He said, hey, donate. Our goal is to get to, I think his goal was like $500,000 that he wanted donated to the hurricane victims. And by the time it was over, they had donated something like $36 million. Okay, so his goal was like $500,000. They ended up donating $36 million, somewhere in that ballpark, over $30 million to the cause, to help hurricane victims, which was just incredible, and it endeared him to the city of Houston forever, no question about it. And for that, he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. But then he comes back in 2018 after 2 straight injury-riddled seasons, records 16 sacks. Now, in 2019, he only had 4. He only played 8 games in 2019. And then 2020, last year, he only had 5. But, of course, the Texans have turned into the butt of every joke. It seems like we always have that. The Browns were the butt of every joke for years, of every NFL joke. And it was the Jets. But now the Jets seem to be in a decent position, right? They're probably going to get a new quarterback. They're going to trade Sam Darnold, maybe get something for him. And they're either going to have Justin Fields out of Ohio State or the kid out of BYU. So they're going to be in good hands at the quarterback position. They hired Robert Saleh, who deserved a head coaching job last year, got one this year. Congrats to him. So it seems like, hold on a second, the Jets are in the mix. And by the way, the Jets are also in the mix for Deshaun Watson possibly. And I've even heard Russell Wilson's name. We talked about Russell Wilson yesterday and the possibility of him getting traded. I don't think he will this year. Maybe next year. We'll see. But I've heard his name being floated around as possibly the future quarterback of the New York Jets. So who knows? But back to J.J. Watt. Now, the good thing about J.J. Watt is now he's in a position I get to make my own decision where I go. And there's plenty of teams around the NFL that could use a great pass rusher, a dominant defensive player. And I think it's pretty simple. Green Bay. Go to Green Bay. Because Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. The Packers, while they had 2 good pass rushers, I like Preston Smith a lot. Man, Preston Smith gets to the quarterback. Zadarius Smith can be a little inconsistent. So make Zadarius Smith or J.J. Watt, I would probably put Zadarius Smith at the spot. Make Zadarius Smith your third down pass rusher, okay? Put J.J. Watt in. Again, he's from Wisconsin, so he'd be going home. It would be cold weather, but it's not like he's unfamiliar with that. Again, he did grow up in Wisconsin. I've also heard the possibility of him going to Pittsburgh and lining up opposite his brother TJ. That could work. Obviously, TJ was in the running, and some feel he was even robbed for Defensive Player of the Year from Aaron Donald. So there's a debate there, but TJ Watt is an unbelievable pass rusher. So I don't know. I think Green Bay is probably the best spot for JJ Watt. Because of the fact, man, he can still get after the quarterback. He actually, against the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, had a pick 6. And he's had a few pick 6s. So congrats to J.J. Watt and being the greatest Houston Texan ever. I mean, again, it's not like the Texans have like a long, extensive franchise history like the Steelers or the Packers or the 49ers or the Cowboys. They've only been around for, let's see, this is going to be, this is their 20th anniversary coming up as an organization. They're obviously the youngest team in the NFL. But I think J.J. Watt and Green Bay would work great. I really do. It's funny, before I move on to Steph Curry, just about the city of Houston, man, I feel bad for y'all. Houston has lost some stars in the past, year? So they've lost DeAndre Hopkins. They've lost J.J. Watt. They're probably going to lose Deshaun Watson in the next couple of months whenever the Texans get it through their thick skull that Deshaun Watson's not playing there anymore. They lost James Harden last month. They lost George Springer, who was the MVP of the World Series when the Astros cheated their way to the title in 2017. But they lost him, their best player easily in the playoffs, George Springer. He's in Toronto now. So the city of Houston in sports has had a really rough last few months, losing DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, James Harden. They're going to lose Deshaun Watson, and they lost George Springer. So this has not been a good year for Houston sports fans. So I feel bad for y'all. Rockets are good though. I mean, they're under 500, but they play good basketball at times. So we'll see where that progresses from there. So let's go to the NBA now. And there's been a real debate. Let me scoot back a little bit because I'm I know I'm supposed to be somewhat unbiased on this show, and that's fair. I understand. You want to see your host stay unbiased, but let me just get this on. I got to ride with my man number 30, man. Steph Curry is having an unbelievable season. As I get this jersey on, there we go. So you say, Bryson, are you biased because you're a Golden State Warriors fan? A little, We're all biased at some point. Lakers fans think LeBron's the MVP. Nuggets fans think Nikola Jokic is the MVP. Philly fans think Joel Embiid's the MVP. I think that's the top four. I think the four guys in the running. You could make an argument for Kevin Durant. The only issue with him is he hasn't played that many games. He's taken some games off with the Achilles injury. He's obviously missed the last week due to COVID protocols, so that's understandable. He would have to pretty much not miss a single game the rest of the season if he wants to keep his name in the MVP race. But this guy, Steph Curry, is having arguably, now think about this, he's having arguably the best season of his career. Because when you look at this guy's stats, this season, now remember last year, Steph only played 5 games because 4 games into the year he broke his hand and was out for 3 months. He was up 5 months. And he comes back, plays 1 game against the Toronto Raptors. He's pretty good. But then he sits out the next 2 games because of flu-like symptoms. And then COVID hits and the NBA shuts down the season. And that's the last we saw from Steph Curry last season. But he comes back this year. And obviously, we all got the devastating news, Dub Nation and the NBA in general got the devastating news that Klay Thompson was out for the year with another major injury, this time an Achilles rupture. But everybody's thinking, okay, Golden State's not in the championship race, and that hurts to say. Like I said, as a Warriors fan, I've been pretty spoiled over, a 5-year stretch. And, last year was not exactly the funnest year in the world. We were tanking for a top pick, and we got James Wiseman, who's been pretty good before his injury. But the point is, Golden State's not a championship contender. They're not. But there were skeptics, there were doubters on whether Steph Curry is his success a product of Steve Kerr? Is it a product of Klay Thompson? Well, we're seeing this season with no Klay. Obviously, KD left a long time ago. I'm going to discuss KD later in the show because he's going to play his very first game in the Bay against Golden State since he left the Warriors 2 years ago. But Steph right now is averaging 30 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, 6 assists, and he is 6th in the NBA in player efficiency rating. Something else that is worth noting is that he hit 10 more threes last night against the Orlando Magic. I watched the game. He was spectacular. In his career, he has 17 career games with 10 3-pointers. Okay. That is more than the next 5 players on the list combined. Okay. I think Klay Thompson is in second with 6. Okay. So Steph's at the top with 17. Klay's way down at 6. Okay. And 6 is amazing. Steph's got 17. And something else I heard during the game last night is that no player, now think about this. Steph Curry is 32 years old. No player at his age, 32 years old, has ever scored more points throughout the first 26 games of the regular season, except for Steph Curry, outside of some guy named, was it Michael Jordan? That's what Steph Curry's doing right now. And you say, come on, man. Golden State's the 8th seed right now. They're it's still 50-50 on whether they'll get in the playoffs. Before the season started, I personally picked Golden State to be the 6th seed. And maybe give Denver, if Denver can get on a run, maybe give Denver, Utah, or the Lakers, or the Clippers, maybe give them a fight, maybe take the series 6 games. I can't see, even as a Warriors fan, I can't see the Warriors winning a playoff series. I just can't. But, a lot of people argue that Steph in 2015-16, the year the Warriors went 73-9, a lot of people believe that was one of the 5, some people even say one of the 3 greatest regular seasons by a player. Some even argue the best in NBA history. And it was incredible. He hit 402 threes. He shot 50, 40, 90, 50% of the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the free throw line. But I'm looking at Steph's stats from that season, from that second straight MVP season where he won unanimously. He's the only player in NBA history to win the unanimous MVP. And so Steph Curry played 79 games. Again, we like we mentioned, shot 50% for the field, shot 45% from 3. Okay. Averaged 30 points a game, 5 rebounds, nearly 7 assists, and 2 steals. He not only led the league in scoring, he also led the league in steals. But something I think is interesting is Steph hit 402 threes, which is a record by a wide margin. Okay. I think the previous record was 286, which is also his record, by the way. He's first and second in NBA history in made threes in a season, although I think James Harden might have passed him a couple of years ago in second. But the point is, he's got the record, 402 threes in a season by a wide margin. Okay? So I did the math, and this is a 72-game NBA season, okay? 82 games, it's not going to happen this year because they wanted to get the season in, get to the playoffs, and have the playoff games. If this were an 82-game season, okay, if this were an 82-game regular season, Steph would be on pace to hit 398 three-pointers, which would be only 4 behind his record, his personal record and the NBA record, which is 402. Keep in mind, by the way, he's 5 years older. He's had more injuries. He's obviously, he's had more surgeries, more rehabs, things of that nature since 2015-16. And when you look at Steph's numbers this year, they're awful similar, aren't they? So Steph averaged 30 points a game last year. Or I should say, Steph is averaging 30 points a game this year. In 2015-16, Steph averaged 30 points a game as well. So that's kind of neck and neck, right? But Steph is averaging slightly more rebounds, slightly fewer assists, and he's on pace to hit only 4 fewer, not 15, not 4 fewer threes. If there were an 82-game season, he'd be on pace to make only 4 fewer threes than he did his unanimous MVP season. And so you say, come on, Bryson. They went 73-9 a few years ago. In 2015-16, it was not a few years ago, it was 5 years ago. They went 73-9. That's a big reason he won the unanimous MVP. Yeah, that's true, right? It was the greatest regular season team, won the greatest team because they lost and they choked a 3-1 lead in the finals. But it was the greatest regular season team in NBA history. But at the same time, who won the MVP? Ironically, the year after Steph won the MVP, who won the league MVP award with this team as the 6th seed in the West? And by the way, his team went out in 5 games in the first round. Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double, carried I wouldn't go so far as to say a bad Thunder team, but Thunder team. And listen, I don't think Westbrook deserved the MVP personally. I thought he was right behind James Harden. Okay, I thought James Harden had a better season all the way around than Russell Westbrook, and he actually beat him in the playoffs. But Russ got the MVP, and his team was the 6th seed. Okay? Steph's the 8th seed right now, so certainly we're 20, 25, 26 games into this thing. He's still, the Warriors still have a shot to get to the 6th seed. And so you say, well, what about LeBron? And I would say, here's why I put it right now. I put Steph slightly, not by much, slightly above LeBron James. Now, LeBron has been incredible to start the year, okay? You look at his numbers, he's averaging 25.5 a game, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and really good player efficiency rating. By the way, Steph's player efficiency rating is 6th, LeBron's is 11th. And Steph also has him by 4.5 points in scoring. And of course, LeBron has more rebounds and more assists. And LeBron's been amazing. Anthony Davis, he's dealing with an Achilles issue right now, which is a little concerning if you're a Lakers fan. So hopefully he's okay. But even before that, and I don't know if it was due to the Achilles, but Anthony Davis has gotten off to kind of a slow start. And I think it's partly because the Lakers got a short offseason. And who's the only returning Laker from last year's championship team that's playing amazing right now? Well, it's LeBron James, who, outside of Tom Brady, takes better care of his body than any athlete probably in history. I mean, the attention to detail, he spends an insane amount of money on his body. Because look, athletes, your body is your business, right? And LeBron takes that very seriously, and you can tell because he's still in the MVP race at the age of 36 years old in his 18th NBA season. You look at Joel Embiid, okay? Now, I'll give Joel Embiid this. What I've seen from him, and I don't know if this is only because of the fact that they hired Doc Rivers, and Doc Rivers has done a really good job in Philadelphia. Obviously, Ben Simmons is having a great season. Tobias Harris is playing very well. Seth Curry, Steph's brother, is shooting 50-50-50. Or excuse me, 50-50-90. Steph is part of an elite club that shot 50-40-90. 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 90% for the free throw line. Seth Curry is shooting 50% for the field, 50% from 3, and has not missed a free throw this season. So Maybe might have just, who knows? Maybe I just jinxed him. He's going to miss a free throw his next game, but he's been great. But Joel Embiid is averaging a double-double. He's averaging 29 points a game, 11 rebounds, and he's first in the NBA in player efficiency rating. So he's having an unbelievable season. The Sixers are as well. They're the first seed right now. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think they're a better basketball team today than Brooklyn. I do. Not just because of record. Chemistry has looked better. I feel like the coaching has been better. And it seems like they've really found themselves, and they're obviously a much better defensive team than Brooklyn. And then you look at Nikola Jokic, who's, have we ever seen a player like Nikola Jokic ever? Seriously, think about it. A center, a 7-footer. He's 6'11". Guy who's 6'11", 285 pounds, is averaging 27 a game. That's not surprising. 11 rebounds. Well, that's not surprising either. And 8.5 assists. And he's second to Joel Embiid in player efficiency rating. So a center is almost averaging a triple-double, which is incredible for the Denver Nuggets. But the reason I have Steph as the MVP is because, A, he had arguably the greatest season any player's ever had when he won his unanimous MVP in 2016, which I'm in no way suggesting it's unanimous. I mean, we got a long way to go in the season. Other guys could put their name in the MVP discussion, no question about it. But we're seeing right now, he's putting up numbers almost identical to 5 years ago when he was the unanimous most valuable player. And like I said, listen, I'm a Golden State fan. I've watched every single dribble of every single game this year, start to finish. The second Steph Curry brings the ball up to half court, he's getting double teamed. And I will give a ton of credit to Draymond Green and Steve Kerr for finding ways to get this guy open. Setting screens, a little bit of pick and roll, more pick and roll than we've seen from Steve Kerr in years past. Because look, you got to get the best shooter ever open. But it's just incredible. He's getting double teamed. And last night, I mean, you should see some of the shots. Steph scored 57 the other night against Dallas on a primetime game on ABC. It was a great matchup. Unfortunately, Golden State lost by 2. Luka Doncic was amazing that game. He scored 42 points. Steph scored 57 and hit, I think, 11 three-pointers. Just watch some of the shots he's taken. There are guys all over this guy. Okay? Contested threes. He the next game against the Spurs, he had a step back from darn near half court, and it was nothing but net. Like, when this guy shoots it, you expect it to go in. You don't think, oh, that's probably going to go in. Oh, that's going to miss. No, you literally expect Steph's shot to go in. Okay? And, to Nikola Jokic, well, he is playing with Jamal Murray. That helps. Okay? You look at Joel Embiid. Well, he's got a ton of star teammates. Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, Seth Curry's playing well. Danny Green is playing well. They've got a good bench in Philadelphia. And then LeBron, this is why I think LeBron's slightly behind Steph, because I think of the 4 MVPs, I don't think anybody would argue Steph has the least help, teammate-wise. Draymond's playing really well right now, but if Draymond is your second-best player, with all due respect, you're not going to win a championship. You're just not. Again, in LeBron's case, obviously AD is the second-best player on that team, but he hasn't been playing like it. I think Montrez has played excellent defensively, like we all expected him to do when he went from the Clippers to the Lakers. But this is, I just look at it and I say, his numbers, Curry's, are similar to what they were in 2016 when he was the unanimous MVP. And by the way, we have precedents for a point guard winning MVP when his team is not a championship contender, when his team was the 6th seed, Russell Westbrook. Okay, everybody fell in love with him averaging a triple-double, which had not been done since Oscar Robertson, and he won the MVP. Now, we see this a lot. Really, what we've really seen with the MVP award is who's, and I hate to accuse the media of twisting, or I certainly wouldn't accuse them of rigging, of all things, this award, but we've seen this in years past. Jordan in the 90s, there was kind of Jordan fatigue. He won 5 MVPs, and then after a while, it was just kind of, okay, we're kind of done giving him MVP trophies. Well, was he still the best player? Okay, then he deserves the MVP. And there's not a lot of consistency. I thought Giannis was the MVP last year. I wouldn't have had a problem if LeBron was. His name, he was certainly neck and neck with Giannis, right behind him. But I would have slightly favored Giannis because he was a better defensive player, scored more points, got more rebounds, and he was working with less with the Milwaukee Bucks than LeBron was with the LA Lakers, and so that's that. But Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double in 2016-2017. Okay, he gets the MVP that year. He averages a triple-double the next 2 seasons, and his name is not even in the race. His name is not even in the mix for MVP. It's Harden wins the next year, and Giannis wins the year after that. So I would like to see a little bit more consistency with the media on this award. It seems like they really don't want to give it to LeBron. It looks like they really don't want to give it to Steph. They're fawning over 2 guys who have been great this year, Jokic and Embiid. They've been great. But just because you're tired of LeBron being great or you're tired of Steph Curry being great, well, too bad. I've always kind of like the Tom Brady thing when I hear fans, I'm tired of Tom Brady winning. Why? Enjoy it. This is the greatest run by quarterback we've ever seen. Enjoy it. Step back, enjoy it. Same thing in the NBA. LeBron James, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time. Enjoy it. Steph Curry, undoubtedly the greatest shooter we've ever seen. He may retire as a top 10 player ever if he were to win another MVP or another title. Step back, enjoy it. Okay? But guys like this don't just grow on trees. We don't see Steph Curry's don't just, and LeBron James and Kevin Durant, they don't just, come around very often. I mean, these are all-time great players, first ballot Hall of Famer without a question. And 2 guys I consider, Steph and LeBron, I consider them on my Mount Rushmore in basketball because I've always said my Mount Rushmore in basketball is I've got 4 guys because these 4 guys literally changed the landscape, I should say, of basketball. First of all, you got the greatest ever, Michael Jordan. First of all, he's the GOAT, of course. So of course, he's going to be on Mount Rushmore. But he made the game global, right? There were more European players and more guys from overseas coming into the United States to the NBA, the best basketball league, and the league got better, right? Because you're getting not just the best players domestically, but globally. So that's what Michael Jordan did. And by the way, of course, off the court with Jordan Brand, he wasn't one of the biggest celebrities. He was obviously the biggest celebrity, if you will, in the NBA. He was one of the biggest celebrities in the world, right? I mean, you saw Michael Jordan, you're like, oh, that's Michael Jordan, right? Like, you see some stars, you're like, oh, who's that didn't happen with Michael Jordan. Can you imagine if we'd had social media 25, 30 years ago with Jordan? Goodness. And then next on my list is the late, great, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Because what Kobe did is he made basketball an art, right? He made it beautiful to watch. Not that basketball wasn't beautiful before it, but the way Kobe played. And you see so many guys, you see even LeBron, right? LeBron, first part of his career, he's driving the basket, probably the greatest driver of the basket we've ever seen. I mean, you can't do anything about that. 6'9", 260 pounds. I mean, nothing, most athletic player in the league. You can't do anything about that. But then LeBron over the last few years has developed a fadeaway, right? And it looks eerily similar to Kobe and somewhat similar to Michael Jordan. So Kobe was Michael Jordan. He emulated all of Jordan's moves, his scoring moves, but he made it an art form. Okay. By the way, his shoe game was amazing. And off the court, before he tragically passed last year, he was incredible. So now we go to LeBron, is third on my Mount Rushmore of basketball. Because what LeBron did, and it's transcended not just basketball, but look what we're seeing in the NFL with these quarterbacks. Okay? LeBron said, you know what? I'm a great athlete. It's in my hands. Okay? It's not just in the general manager's hands or the coach's hands, the owner's hands. I'm all-time special. I'm all-time great. It's in my hands to choose where I want to go play. Okay? And the NBA has always been about players, right? More than the NFL, really more than any other league. Obviously, soccer is player-centric, and but as far as the U.S., the NBA is the most player-reliant league. And LeBron kind of took advantage of that and said, in 2010, you know what? Loyalty to Cleveland, okay, yeah, they've been loyal and whatnot, the fans, but they can't get me an all-star because nobody wants to go to Cleveland. So I'm going to go to Miami, where everybody wants to go. Dwayne Wade's already there. We're going to go recruit Chris Bosh. Are we going to be the most hated team in the league? Yep. Who cares, though? We're going to win 2 titles. And that's what they did. And then, he chose to go back to Cleveland. He chose to go back to the Lakers. KD one-upped him. And I'm going to talk about KD in a couple minutes. KD one-upped him and said, you know what? I'm going to join a team that was already great, that had already went 73-9, that had already won a title 2 years prior to my arrival. And you saw the results of that. They won 2 straight championships, and KD was the finals MVP of both. And so, we see, like I said, in the NFL with these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson's like, if you're not going to put any help around me, I'll just go somewhere else where they will give me help. Okay? You see Matt Stafford in dysfunctional Detroit. And I have my doubts about Matthew Stafford, but he's certainly going to a much better situation with the Rams. He's absolutely going to be put in a much better situation to go win a championship, to go win a Super Bowl. And he's like, man, Detroit can't get anybody. And they can't find a good coach. They can't find good personnel. Can't find a good general manager. I got to leave. And so Matt Stafford left. You look at Deshaun Watson. He's like, y'all can't give me an offensive line, a head coach. You told me, you promised me when I signed my contract that I would have say in personnel. And then once it's time to add new personnel, a new head coach, you don't ask my opinion. He's like, okay, I can't trust you. I'm gone. And Deshaun Watson is not going to play for the Houston Texans ever again. I got news for you, Houston, especially for the Texans. He's not playing there anymore. If he has to sit out this entire season, he's going to sit out this whole season. He'll just work with trainers or he'll play somewhere else. He has played his last down with the Houston Texans. And then Dak is in a contract where Jerry's like, I'm not just settling for what you want to give me. Okay? I'm going to get the contract that I want. And so that's what LeBron did. And it's really transcended sports. And then the final guy on that list is Steph Curry. It's come to a point in the NBA now, you have to be able to shoot the 3. What was the downfall of Dwight Howard? Couldn't shoot. What was the downfall of Derrick Rose? Injuries, yes. But if he had been a good shooter, look at Vince Carter, by the way. Vince Carter played till 42, 43 years old, right? Because Vince Carter was known for athleticism and jumping out of the gym and the dunk contest in 2000. But then he had developed a 3-point shot and it extended his career. That's why Dirk Nowitzki played into his 40s. Dirk Nowitzki could do nothing else at the end, but he could shoot. Steph has made it to where you have to be able to shoot the 3 ball. I mean, look at LeBron shooting 40% from 3. Did we ever think that happened? And that's where Steph has changed the game. And so right now, today, February 12th, 2021, Steph's the MVP. Similar numbers to his first MVP season. And he's carrying Golden State. He's getting double teamed every single time down. LeBron isn't. He's getting double teamed not every single time down. Okay, they're not trapping LeBron to get the ball out of his hands every single possession. They're doing that with Steph. They obviously can't do that to Jokic in Denver or Embiid in Philadelphia. So that's just my thoughts on it. I guess I'll just wear this jersey the rest of the show. Why not? So I probably haven't talked this much Golden State words in this show ever. And I'm not a homer, by the way. I'm not from the Bay Area. You can probably tell based on my accent. I'll leave it at that. But I've been a Warriors fan since 2013-14. That was the year I think they won 48 games. No, they won 50 games. That was Mark Jackson's last year there. They won 50 games, fell short to the Clippers in the first round of that series in 7 games. That was the same series that the whole Donald Sterling thing happened. So, both Golden State and the Clippers were close to boycotting that series. And so that was a crazy time to be a fan. But let's move on to sticking with Golden State. Ironically, let's stick with Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin Durant has not played in a week. His last game was a week ago today against Toronto. He did not start the game because of concerns relating to an inconclusive, COVID test. And eventually they came out during the game. They took him out because they said, oh, you tested positive. And remember, Kevin Durant got the virus early on in the pandemic in March. And so apparently they thought he got it again. It turned out to be a false positive. But just for precautionary measures, they're holding him out. They held him out for a week. But Kevin Durant's going to be back next week, or tomorrow night, I should say, against his former team, the Golden State Warriors. This is his second game against his former team since he left, and his first game in the Bay Area against his old team, which he won 2 championships with. And so the question is, what's his legacy with Golden State? First of all, I've heard some debate over whether number 35 should be retired by Golden State. There's not a question it should be retired. It's painfully obvious. Okay? Because number one, what guy is going to wear 35 again and be better than Kevin Durant? Okay? Kevin Durant, KD's probably going to go down as the 3rd greatest small forward ever. He may go down as the 2nd greatest small forward ever. The 2 guys he's behind are LeBron James and Larry Bird. Okay? So it's not like, Tim Duncan I think is great, but I would take both Bird and obviously LeBron over Tim Duncan as the greatest, who's the greatest power forward of all time. But back to Kevin Durant. Now, a lot of people believe that his rings somewhat, for some reason, they didn't count. They weren't legit rings. He didn't earn them by going to the Golden State Warriors. And let me speak about this objectively. If you work somewhere, and it's a good job, but you could go somewhere else where you're the focal point, where it's all about unselfishness. It's a better opportunity. You're going to get paid more, and you're going to be recognized for the incredible talent that you are. Well, you would go, right? Of course you would. It's a better opportunity. That's what Kevin Durant did. He was with the Thunder, obviously was putting out, he won the MVP in 2014, but the organization favored Russell Westbrook. At the end of games, who was taking the last shot? Westbrook, who shooting the ball is not even in the same universe as Kevin Durant. So KD leaves. Now, this is obviously, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that, of course, the Thunder blew a 3-1 lead to Golden State in the 2016 Western Conference Finals. KD was amazing in Game 5. He was not good. He missed multiple big shots down the stretch of Game 6. That was the beginning of Game 6 Clay. Clay hit like 11 threes, 41 points. He was incredible in that game. KD was not down the stretch in the fourth quarter. They lost. They go to Oracle Arena in Game 7. It's a close game. KD plays well, but the Thunder lose to Golden State and blow the 3-1 lead. And then a month later, KD is a Golden State Warrior. And so he goes there 2017 and averages 37 points a game. I believe it was near 40 points a game in the finals against LeBron James, who many considered a better player. Who at the time LeBron was a better player. I think today KD is slightly, not by much, slightly better than LeBron. But KD goes to the Warriors. They go 16-1 through the playoffs. Their 1 losses in Game 4 of the finals to Cleveland when they had already been up 3-0 in the series, and it was over. And then they come back in Game 5, and KD drops 39-7, and the Warriors win the championship, and Kevin Durant is the finals MVP. And they come back the next year, and it's looking a little rocky, a little shaky. But then they get to the playoffs. KD's great in the first round, great in the second round, a little shaky in the Western Conference Finals. But then the NBA Finals, he reminds people who he is. And he wins Finals MVP. And so then we go to the 2019 playoffs, his final postseason run with Golden State. And he's averaging 35 a game on, I believe, it was 35 a game on 50% shooting from the field and 40% shooting from 3. That's incredible. That's unbelievable. And he unfortunately gets hurt against the Houston Rockets, and we know the rest of that story. Golden State won that series. They went on to beat Portland, and they're down 3-1 to Toronto. KD comes back. He should not have come back against the Toronto Raptors. He tears his Achilles, ruptures his Achilles in the second quarter of that game, and that was all she wrote for Kevin Durant's time in Golden State. So what's his legacy? Well, he won 2 Finals MVPs. He was the best player on the team when he was there. He beat LeBron twice and hit, by the way, back-to-back years, hit 2 clutch threes, basically from the same spot on the court in a Game 3 in 2017 and 18 to beat the Cavs over LeBron. By the way, that first game-winning 3 was over LeBron. So I say, why, why wouldn't his number be retired? Why wouldn't, Golden State honor this guy for what he is? Is he the greatest Warrior? No, I always say the greatest player to ever play for the Warriors. There's a distinction. Who's the greatest Warrior and who's the greatest player to ever play for the Warriors? For example, the Miami Heat. LeBron James is the greatest player to play for the Miami Heat, but the best Miami Heat player was Dwayne Wade. Similar in Golden State. I would say Wilt Chamberlain was the best player to ever play for the Warriors. Kevin Durant right behind him. But Steph Curry is the greatest Warrior of all time. He's won 3 titles, 2 MVPs. He's been the face of their franchise for the last decade. But I say, yeah, absolutely he should be honored. KD in Golden State tomorrow night. They're going to play a tribute video, apparently. And so he's going to return as a Brooklyn Net. Certainly as a Warriors fan, I had great memories. I've been a fan of KD's since he was in Oklahoma City. I continue to be a fan of him now that he's a Brooklyn Net. I don't think the Nets are going to win the East. I did before the season started. I do not believe so now. I think Philly is a little bit better than them, and I think Boston is don't mess with Boston now. And we see also how Kyrie and Harden can implode in the playoffs. And so there's that. So let's move on to 2 young players that I think we all agree on are the future of the league. That's, of course, Luka Doncic and Zion Williamson, who in about 45 minutes or so, more like an hour, about an hour from now, are actually going to face off at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on ESPN. The Pelicans on the road against the Dallas Mavericks, who have been playing much better in recent games. And so the question is, the debate question really, is who would you want leading your team over the next 10, 15 years? Now, you got a lot of time to make that decision because Luka Doncic is going to turn 22 at the end of this month, and Zion is going to finish the season still at the age of 20. So, less than a year ago, Zion Williamson was a teenager and putting up the numbers he was putting up. But Luka across the board is putting up better numbers than Zion. 29 points a game, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. He's almost averaging a triple-double. Zion, though, is having a scary good season. Zion Williamson's having an all-star season, guys. 24 points, 7 rebounds, only 3 assists, but he's 8th in the NBA in player efficiency rating. So, who would you take over the next 10 years? I would take Zion. I would. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Luka. Similar to Giannis, obviously he's crazy strong. I mean, Steven Adams, one of the strongest players in the league, said Zion's the strongest player he's ever played with or against. He said that. He said, try getting around a screen from this guy. I mean, he's a big dude. And he broke the rim the other night. I think the Pelicans were playing the Pistons. He broke the rim the other night on a dunk. They had to repair the rim during a long timeout. That's how powerful he is. But again, Zion is 20 years old. You say, well, Luka is a year and a half older. That's fair. But we've seen Luka have issues with his 3-point shot. The thing about Zion is Zion knows what he is. He knows he needs to get better in the 3-point area. He knows that, he's as dominant as anybody this side of Giannis in the paint. Like, what are you going to do to stop that? Like, seriously, I know he's only 6'7". What are you going to do to stop that? And so I liked the Zion more going into the 2019 draft than I did Luka in the 2018 draft. I didn't just buy into the Zion hype because of the highlights and played at Duke and whatever. This dude is, I don't know if Luka has natural leadership skills, and that even in the NBA, that matters. LeBron is a natural leader. Giannis is a natural leader. Steph Curry is a natural leader. Kawhi, not really at all. Okay. Jimmy Butler, definitely a natural leader, and you see where that can take you places. I've never seen great leadership qualities from Luka Doncic. Is he crazy talented? No question. He's as talented as any player coming into the league that we've seen in a while, certainly from Europe. But Zion, he's got the smile. He's having a good time. And I'm not saying this because he's, maybe more likable than Luka, or he puts up, more highlights than Luka does. But guys, you can tell on the floor, the Pelicans have a different energy. Okay, they have a different mojo when Zion is on the floor. Okay, they play faster. Lonzo Ball is a completely different player when Zion is in the floor as opposed to when he's not on the floor. We saw that last year. We've seen that this year. They're a lethal duo and haven't got enough credit for what they've done this season. Again, I love Luka. I actually picked Luka Doncic to be the MVP this year before the year started. And certainly he is not out of that race. I just gave you the numbers. He's averaging 28, 9, and 9. So he's having a heck of a season. Problem is Dallas is under 500, as is the Pelicans. So we'll see how it plays out down the stretch. But let's check this debate 3 years from now. Let's mark it down. Today, I say Zion, but 3 years from now, I may say Luka. I do have concerns about Zion's ability to stay healthy. You know, as the old cliche goes, the best ability is availability. You got to be there to be great. You can't be great if you're not there. And so but we've seen from, Zion showed up at the bubble last year and looked kind of out of shape. And it was like, man, can this dude get in shape and stay healthy? And we've seen this season he's come back. He's very much in shape. He's playing amazing right now. And he hasn't had any injury issues. So long term, I would take Zion. Now, Pelicans or Dallas Mavericks, that factors into it too. New Orleans has a history of being pretty much irrelevant. We wouldn't be watching Pelicans games right now if, I made the argument a year ago when I was talking about Zion Williamson is, Pelicans fans were booing Anthony Davis in his first game back when he was with the Lakers. It was like the day before Thanksgiving last year. And Anthony Davis comes back as a Laker, and the fans are booing him because he forced his way out of New Orleans, whatever. And my thing was, hey, New Orleans, you should be thanking this guy. He got you Zion Williamson and also Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball as well because of that trade with the Lakers. Because of the fact that they didn't have Anthony Davis, they were bad. So in the lottery, they got the number 1 pick. And we see how that's turning out. He's been amazing. And so, if Zion Williamson didn't get drafted by the Pelicans, I firmly believe that 5 years from now, they would move. They would move to another, they moved to Charlotte. They went back and forth to Charlotte. They were at the Charlotte Pelicans. There were New Orleans Hornets. They went back and forth. I think the Pelicans would have went back to, I think that Seattle would have gotten an NBA team back. Because, when we think of sports cities or basketball cities, New Orleans does not come to mind. We think of football cities, New Orleans absolutely comes to mind. They host the Super Bowl as much as anybody. The Saints, once they got Drew Brees, Sean Payton, were one of the better run franchises in the league. They're a great drafting team. New Orleans is quite the opposite, right? They struggle to fill the Smoothie King Arena right next to the Superdome. And so if Luka didn't get drafted by Dallas, well, Mark Cuban still owns the team, right? We've seen over the last few days, he's kept them relevant. They only won a title with Dirk Nowitzki. And over the course of the last 20 years, they've been a darn good franchise. They've had some lean years in between the last time they made the playoffs with Dirk and once they got Luka. But for the most part, they've been a very functional organization. They've drafted pretty well. And that's not been the case with the Pelicans. They've been pretty much irrelevant since they've been in New Orleans. So that's why I'd take, as far as value, I would take Zion over Luka over a heartbeat considering the situations they're in. Now, sorry, I've got something in my nose. I don't know what's up. So last topic of the day is Urban Meyer. And you know me, I love the hire of Urban Meyer by the Jacksonville Jaguars this offseason because I figure it could be similar to a situation that we saw with Pete Carroll. This is why I wanted the Dallas Cowboys, to hire Lincoln Riley as their next head coach, because we saw with Pete Carroll, the Seahawks have not been a good drafting team over the last few years. So why were they such a great drafting team when Pete Carroll first got there? Well, Pete Carroll recruited or coached against some of the guys he drafted. So he had a unique perspective on who Seattle should take in those first few drafts when he was the head coach. Similar to same situation with Urban Meyer. He's going to get Trevor Lawrence, of course, with the number 1 pick. And he's recruited against some of the players that the Jaguars want to draft. But Urban left Ohio State in 2018 partly because of health issues, and I believe in part because there was a very controversial situation in Ohio State in 2018, obviously with Urban Meyer, that caused him to get suspended the first 3 games of that season. And that was when one of his assistants with the team was accused of domestic violence and found to be guilty of domestic violence. And Urban Meyer, because he coached with this guy's dad, said he didn't know about it. I don't know. I'm still skeptical about it, whether he knew that this guy, I mean, listen, you're the head coach of Ohio State football. You should know these things. If an assistant coach is abusing his wife, you should know that. And so I do believe that in part contributed to him leaving Ohio State. I think he waited a few years to get back into coaching, A, to get his health right, and B, to maybe try and shake the bad reputation from that last year with the Buckeyes. But he made another controversial move. He hired Chris Doyle. Now, those of you that do not know about Chris Doyle, he was the strength and conditioning coach at the University of Iowa for their football program. And Mr. Doyle has been accused by multiple players. He was at Iowa for 20 years. And he got fired last summer, when some of these reports started resurfacing, because he had multiple players, black and white, who accused him. The white players accused him of bullying, and the black players accused him of not just bullying and belittling, but also racism, and accusing him of using the N-word towards them. And so once the social justice movement started last summer, it was like we can't tolerate this anymore. We can't tolerate racism and bullying. So they fired him. And Urban Meyer is going to hire him as the director of sports performance. So first of all, I hate the move. I hate to go along with everybody else all the time, but this is a situation where you have to. I hate the move. Why would you hire a guy who is one of the more controversial figures in college football in the last 365 days? Now he's obviously in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why would you hire a guy who has a history of disrespecting players, belittling players, some said bullying players, and black players have accused him of using the worst word you could ever call a black person? So, why would you hire this guy? That's my question for Urban Meyer. You already had the controversy in Ohio State. Why would you put yourself in another position when you're giving, I don't want to say a second chance, because Urban's a great coach, and he didn't do anything wrong at Ohio State as far as his actions. It was his lack of actions. It was his lack of paying attention, or it was his, him ignoring the situation with his assistant coach in Ohio State in 2018, excuse me, with that assistant coach who abused his wife. And again, domestic violence has been an issue the NFL hasn't been great at. College football hasn't been so hot themselves with this issue. But then he hires a guy. It seems like we're starting to maybe make this. It's Black History Month, and it seems like we're starting to make this turn in the world where we're finally starting to recognize, hey, racism is really bad. And finally, I think the country as a whole is finally starting to recognize the effects of racism and what it does, and the history of racism. And I'm not accusing Urban Meyer of being racist right now, but Urban goes out and hires a guy who has as bad of a reputation with this as anybody. And especially something else, the NFL is in some hot water right now. We saw a report where 2 former NFL players, both are black, accusing the NFL of, the NFL had that controversy a few years ago when the movie Concussion came out with Will Smith. They had that controversy with CTE, right? And players, current and former, saying, man, after seeing this stuff, after seeing this movie, after hearing about CTE, I'm scared. Wes Welker, receiver with the Patriots and the Broncos, he said, "I'm not gonna lie, I'm pissed off and I'm scared for what could happen." And the fact that the NFL hasn't really addressed this issue. Now they have in some aspects, but you had 2 black players that accused the NFL of discriminating against them and not giving them insurance, so to speak, right? So you had basically what they're alleging. And by the way, the people that administer cognitive tests agree with them. So they have some backing on this. If a white player and a black player administer the same score on their cognitive test, say it's not great, they're going to, they should anyway, give both players the exact same benefits, help them out, right? If they're alleging, these 2 players, and again, they have backing by people, significant people that give out these cognitive tests, they allege that if a black player and a white player administer the same cognitive test, the white player is more apt to get benefits and coverage and insurance, if you will, because they're alleging that they're just passing over the black players because there's this old stigma that because he's black, he's not as smart as the white guy. So that's what they're alleging against the NFL. So if it comes out, there's a lot of investigating to do. So this is why I use the words allege, because we don't know this for a fact. But if it is true, Roger Goodell is going to have to resign, folks. He will literally have to resign. And some owners might have to sell their teams because the owners have a say in this stuff with the collective bargaining agreement. And Urban Meyer goes out and hires a guy who has a very racist history. Not just not like he said something terrible 25, 30 years. No, he got fired just last year. He's been doing this for 2 decades. And Urban even defended the move. He said, I wouldn't have hired him if I thought he was racist or whatever. Okay, I mean, I guess he's going to be on his best behavior now because this is kind of his last shot. I don't know if he thought he'd get another one. Well, he did with Urban Meyer. We got to see how this plays out. Because if it comes back and there's more issues with this, bullying and racism and calling black people the most terrible word you could ever call them, this could be a disaster for Urban Meyer. And so, we see situations where athletes or celebrities or somebody on social media, they say something dumb or stupid or, get themselves involved in a controversy. And people are like, well, and my thing has always been, don't put yourself in that position. Urban Meyer, of all the guys you could have hired to be your director of sports management, you hired Chris Doyle, who has a horrible history with players. One guy said he retired from football 2 years ago because he couldn't take it anymore. He said, this guy's on my back constantly just bullying and belittling me. So I lost my joy for the game of football. And Urban Meyer hired that guy? It's a bad look. We'll see how it plays out, and we'll see how that report against the NFL by those 2 former players that are alleging that basically they didn't get the same benefits as white players if they administered the same cognitive test result simply because they were black, and the old stigma that's, black players are not as, or black people are not as smart as white people, which is like the dumbest thing in the world. Basically that's what we're alleging. If it comes back and that's true, Roger Goodell will have to literally resign his position as the commissioner of the National Football League. So this is going to be an interesting, and by the way, again, we have the same situation where yet again, more black coaches didn't get hired. We did have one, David Culley with the Houston Texans, ironically, who wouldn't interview a minority candidate seriously because, we had the Rooney Rule. What's sad about the Rooney Rule is it doesn't work anymore. The Rooney Rule, for those of you that don't know, is you are required to interview a minority candidate so that there is no discrimination. It doesn't work anymore. Teams just bring in minority candidates just to pass the Rooney Rule. Then they'll hire the guy that they want. We saw in Tampa Bay 2 black coordinators in Byron Leftwich offensively, and especially Todd Bowles on the defensive side of the football. put on one of the greater, Byron Leftwich was really good, don't get me wrong. But Todd Bowles might have had the greatest game as a defensive coordinator in a Super Bowl of all time. And he was never even considered. And he wanted a head coaching job. He was never even considered for a head coaching job. You know who got an interview to be a head coach? Josh McCown, who his only experience coaching is high school. Todd Bowles had the greatest defensive game plan by a coordinator in a Super Bowl, considering the offense he was going against in Kansas City and Pat Mahomes and those guys. Held him to 9 points. Was never taken seriously. Whereas the Houston Texans interviewed Josh McCown, whose only head coaching experience is high school. So this is an issue. I know the NFL had this thing in 2020 where they were going to, put more of a focus on social justice, and they have done some good things. But we still see this occurring over and over and over and over. So, Urban Meyer, you made a mistake. We'll see how the other investigation plays out. So, only time will tell. Only the investigation will tell. But this situation is not only time will tell. Urban Meyer made a mistake. This is a bad look for him. This is a bad look for Jacksonville. Shad Khan, the owner, should have nixed this. He should have said, "We're not hiring this guy. He's bad for the locker room. He's bad for the organization. It's a bad look for you, Urban. It's a bad look for the franchise. The players will not like it. Shouldn't have done it, and there's no excuse." So, with all that said, that's all the time we have for today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining. A lot of great basketball this weekend. Again, tonight, Luka versus Zion, two of the best young players in the league. We got Kevin Durant going back to Golden State for the first time since he left 2 years ago. Tomorrow night, the big 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific game on ABC. Cannot wait for that one. I know the Lakers, LeBron goes against Ja Morant tonight. So some great NBA basketball over the next few days. So should be talking about some of that. So hope everybody has a great weekend. Excuse me. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Please continue to stay safe. God bless you all. Peace out.